Okay, this blade looks pretty simple. Looks like we're going to need about 5.5, 7 inches of material. And we really just need to kind of pound it out to a square to begin with. So we're just going to use an old file that's broke off. We'll mark 7 inches out here on our anvil. Try to get us a 7-inch piece of square stock, and we'll go from there. One of Liam Hoffman's hammers. He calls his rounding hammer. It's got a flat die on one side with a little bit of radius here on the outside, and then a rounded pole on the other side that's a full radius. It gives you a lot of opportunities to just flip that hammer back and forth from a rounding die to spread that metal out like a fuller to a flatter to get your final shape. I just started using this hammer, but I'm pretty fond of it so far. Right at my 7-inch length. So now I'm just going to kind of taper the ends of this thing. Alright, so now all I'm really doing is making sure that everything is symmetrical, especially in the areas here that are going to be the blade, that my square is the same dimension. And then I want to try to get it decently flat and straight. And now I'm going to let it air cool. Alright, so I've let this blade cool down a little bit, and then I've just ground off so I could see what I was doing right here and kind of squared everything up. And now I'm going to mark where my blade bevel is going to be. And we've got, on this blade, we've got 2 3/4 inches. Really actually about 2.5. 2.5 inches of cutting surface. So let's find the center line of this, and we're 7.5 long, which means we're a little bit longer than we want it to be at 7. We can also trim things down after the fact. And if we've got a little bit more stick up here, we can grind it off. It's not that big of a deal. So let's find the center first, our center point first. And that's 7.5. 3.5 would be 7. 3 3/4 would be 7.5. So So let's just put a mark there to find our center line. We'll just put a tick in there with a chisel real quick to mark that in. Make sure that we can see about where that's at. Then we're going to figure out how much of this is going to be beveled. And again, triple check everything. We got 2.5 inches of cutting surface there. Just a little over 2.5. So half of 2.5 is what we're looking for. So 1 1/4 is going to give us that. So we're going to go from this line over 1 1/4 inches and make a mark here. Again, these are just for reference. And then the other side 1 1/4 inches over and mark it. And that should give us our 2.5 inch cutting surface. So we know this area here is what needs to be ground into our bevel. I'm cutting this bevel in from the reverse side at about a 30-degree angle. Pretty good. Like I said, I won't take the final grind off this thing until after heat treat. I just want to make it close. And it's getting pretty close right now. Now it's time to heat this thing back up and get our studs bent. Okay, now I'm taking an axe file and just dressed that up a little bit from the grinder. And we pretty much have a match now to this blade. Now we've got to bend our studs that go up through the handle here, which is going to require us to heat this thing up again and put 2 90-degree bends in it, evenly spaced.